Hi, welcome back to the channel. We're today interviewing Sanjiv Bhasin, the CEO of Afrasia Bank, a bank that employs 400 people both in Mauritius and Johannesburg. Sanjiv has worked for 40 years in the industry and has got a vast experience of both local and international markets. Let's listen to what is his perspective on how things are expected to evolve and what are the lessons that he learns from this whole pandemic. But before that, I hope that you have subscribed to the channel by clicking on the subscribe button. If not, please do it now. Let's get on with the interview. Thank you, Sanjiv, for being on the channel. And you've been a seasoned banker. You've worked in the multinational banks, you've worked locally, abroad, and you have been seeing quite a few things. I'm sure a lockdown situation for a long period is not something that you're used to. First of all, what are the challenges that you are facing today?
The foremost challenge is that what comes in the forefront is health and safety of all your colleagues and staff at every moment of time. So the whole focus in terms of priority shifts quite dramatically at the end of the day. Second thing which comes into play is the interconnectivity with the people working from home and the people who are in office. And then you have a client, most of them who are not going to be coming to the branches as well. You got to connect with them. And obviously that brings the seamless connectivity when you have to deal with three entities. So telecommunication, data lines, VPNs, cyber security also comes to be in the forefront of all decision-making processes. So you see that the variables which become important or which become different in terms of priority have to be brought into play. And therefore, the level of experiences you have, the level of background information and performances which you have in these priorities is much less. And therefore, it turns out to be a learning experience for everybody.
So, Sanjiv, when you mentioned time and you mentioned decision making, time was certainly not on your side when you had to take a quick decision on how to get people equipped at home and get that new engagement level going on. How did you go about in that quick time to actually make things happen?
Okay, so we would say that we were watching the global trends, what was happening in other countries and the other large cities. We had seen certain government action where working from home had become a reality. And we started preparing ourselves from the back end of January, in fact, and we started making sure that everybody has laptops, everybody has VPN, our data lines have the necessary bandwidth, and we actually started placing people at home much ahead before the lockdown started. And that was what enabled us to do this comfortably.
All right. So, but now tell me, because you have obviously been ahead of the curve, and I'm sure that you are also now being ahead of the curve after the lockdown. And how do you see things evolving here? What are the lessons learned? Or do you think that the business model itself can be changing going forward?
I firmly believe at the end of the day that this lockdown or this virus or coronavirus that is called is going to fundamentally have very significant changes globally. Some new services, some new products, but certainly the manner in which those products and services are delivered will go through a fundamental change.
Sure.
Then let us say this is the first time in my 40 years of career where work from home as a concept has been tested globally. Yeah. And without having hard data as yet in front of me, I can say that it has by and large worked. Now, as a concept, would you like to adopt that and carry it forward? My answer to the question is yes, because that improves the quality of life. That brings about tremendous saving. So I am convinced beyond doubt that things are going to change, and there will be a lot of opportunities for either you can say new businesses to emerge or new business models to certainly emerge. The question is to take a decision that I don't have to waste time to think whether I need to reconfigure my business model and hope everything falls back. That I don't think you have a luxury.
Obviously, the banking industry itself, especially on retail and corporate banking to some extent, a lot of things can be done remotely. But yet, you would expect that other things would change and other things would evolve as well in the banking industry going forward. Where do you see that type of evolution happening?
The banking industry is probably the most matured industry in any economy. It's the oldest probably. And by and large, if you take this banking industry 2 decades ago, it had not seen any kind of innovation into that industry. Then I think what happened at the end of the day is there was a slight revolution and service orientation was driven into the banking industry by the retail side. This industry, which was mature and had not witnessed any large-scale innovation, had started evolving and started changing quite dramatically, especially in the last decade. Therefore, in the current environment, this industry just happens to be a little better positioned because it had started emphasizing on customer experience. It had started to design the products the way the customer needed, and it had transferred its operation onto digital platforms the most quickly and at the largest scale. Therefore, has reached a stage that it will probably evolve more quickly than the other industry because this has been facing challenges of a different nature. The chances are that banking is something which will remain for all times to come. But banks, their forms and shape are likely to change because you are already seeing that happen. How are you seeing that happening? That all banks, no matter how small or large they are now having a mix of brick and mortar and digital platforms. The number of branches are either not being opened or in fact are being downsized, closed. The centralization of operations, I think, at a large scale was first undertaken by the banking industry. So once again, there is likely to be process intervention to improve these services. There's going to be technological intervention to improve the connectivity with the customer. And obviously the play of the underlying telecom capability will be the factor over which the banking industry will have to pay attention to. Now the other big change which is going to happen is because if the banking industry is going to be the largest user of your digital platform, then the threat of cybersecurity or the need for cybersecurity has to be much, much greater.
Last question that I wanted to ask you is any advice that you'd like to give to leaders during such uncertain times?
I am not in a position to give advice to any leader, but I am conscious of the fact that you have to be very aggressive in terms of driving change. The time that you could be successful if you adopted to the changing market, that time will slowly disappear. The leaders will be those people or those companies which drive the change in the market. And there are very few companies who have been able to understand that the innovative drive in the organization and the organization employees is the future. But the very fact that the innovative spirit will drive your organization forward, it really requires you to analyze as to how you will get that innovative spirit within your culture and within your environment working for you.
Thank you, Sanjiv. This was very insightful. For the rest of you, I hope you enjoyed the interview. Don't forget to subscribe, and until the next interview, stay safe.